Story 1. Just because I am young does not mean I do not need sufficient sleep. Just because I am young does not mean I spend all of my money recklessly and need to work overtime every weekend. Just because I am young does not mean I do not want to relax at home on my time off. I hear a lot of negativity at work because I work with mostly older people. I budget my money wisely, and in a sense I also budget my time. Apparently, those concepts are hard to understand. Story 2. No days off. Sometimes you need a mental health day or a break, and people make it sound like if you don't work yourself into the ground, you won't be successful. Successful people know when to recharge. Just an annoying mindset. Story 3. Alcoholism is being romanticized. No, it's pretty terrible, to be honest. I feel like terrible today. I want to stop drinking, but I know I'm going to drink more today. Story 4. The concept that both fault and responsibility can only be 100% or 0%, and that if someone else has some fault, it absolves another of all responsibility. Story 5. People who oppose good things because I struggled through it and so should you. Instead of thinking good, nobody should go through that if possible. Story 6. If something doesn't work 100% of the time, it isn't worth doing. People use this as an excuse to never do anything or to deny others from trying. It's frustrating and holds us back as a species. Story 7. I read about it on the internet, therefore it's true. My grandma does this all the time to prove her argument, and it always ends up being from some BuzzFeed article. Drives me nuts. Story 8. Quitting is only for losers. If you try something and don't like it, why keep doing it? Why not allow yourself to switch to a better major or try a different sport or get a new job? I mean, don't quit everything once it gets hard. But why stay miserable for a quitters never win mentality? Get a job you like. Do an activity you like. Edit. I really don't mean quit the second you struggle. I do mean knowing when to quit, as many of the comments say. I mean knowing when to go on to better things. As an example in my own life, I changed majors when I saw how miserable the future seemed to me and how badly I was struggling. The switch was the best decision I ever made. It took me too long to not see it as quitting anymore, but moving on. Story 9. If you are a salaried employee and don't finish your work on time, you have to work unpaid overtime until it's complete. However, if at another time you complete all your work early and there's literally nothing left to be done, you're not allowed to leave and instead have to sit at your desk doing nothing until you complete your 40 hours for the week. Employees should either be paid to have their presence in a seat for 40 hours, no more, no less, or be paid to complete a certain set of work regardless of whether it takes 30 hours or 50 hours. This double standard, where you're paid to complete a task and not for a certain number of hours when there's extra work, but are required to be there for a certain number of hours and not to complete a task then leave when there's less work, needs to end. Story 10. There is this whole work culture expectation now of always being reachable by email or text for whatever happens. A lot of places expect, and at times demand, that you be pretty much on call even when you're not at the office anymore. I worked at an advertising agency where days off sometimes didn't even feel like that because I would still be getting emails about things and was expected to be checking them. I hated it. There should be some level of balance between work and personal life, and I feel like that is fading because so many places are adopting this type of culture and mentality, especially startups. Story 11. This mentality of older people in industries refusing to train or teach younger people, then complaining when younger people don't know what they're doing. I deal with this constantly at work. I'm a young guy in my industry, and I am the exception to the norm. Most fire investigators are older guys. They constantly ask me why there aren't more young fire investigators. And I always tell them the same thing. Because you guys made it so difficult to get into the industry by requiring certifications that require 5 years experience to get, require 2 court testimonies to get, and so on, that no one can get into the industry. And then, if someone does manage to break in, you guys treat them poorly, refuse to help them, and refuse to teach them what they need to know. There are many critical industries in the United States that are going to have issues because the barriers to getting into the industry are so high and those already in it are so elitist that there's going to be no one who knows what they are doing left to continue the work. It's a major problem. Teach young people. Bring them in. Show them the ways. Don't be unkind. Story 12. Seat mentality at white-collar office-type jobs. If you do your job at a computer, There is no reason you shouldn't be able to work from home. Attendance is not as important as just getting work done, and it eliminates the need for commuting, which eases traffic and pollution. Reading through the comments, I see there are a lot of people who say they would be less productive because of distractions or other reasons, and to that, I say I totally agree. I don't work in an office, my wife does, which is where this complaint came from. But if I did, I would personally benefit from having oversight and a lack of distractions. I think the main point I'm trying to make is not that it should be for everyone, but that it should be a valid option for those who would benefit from it. I think even that much would significantly reduce traffic and facility costs. Also, I don't claim to know how policies like that are enforced, but I think if your manager is actually doing their job, then they should be able to tell who is actually getting work done and who is slacking off. Story 13. Assuming that people are not allowed to change their opinions or values over time and judging people, famous or not, for comments made decades ago is unfair. Yes, some people have patterns of problematic comments and behavior and should not be ignored. But it also makes sense that, for example, a politician may have learned more about abortion or healthcare and be able to change their stance. We are not the same people at 25 and 50. Story 14. If a person doesn't immediately text you back, it doesn't mean they don't love you. I've seen people upset saying, I texted him after 20 minutes of receiving his text, and it's been 21 minutes, and he hasn't replied yet. We're breaking up. I've even had disagreements with friends because I had to stop texting to drive or go to class. I understand it comes from anxiety. I have clinical anxiety and understand to a point. But it is extremely anxiety-inducing to have to monitor all your text response times and frequency, so the other person doesn't throw the entire relationship away over not texting back fast enough. It's ridiculous. And I'm so tired of it. Let people have a life outside of you. Their life doesn't have to be entirely dedicated to you for them to truly love you. Sometimes the best thing you can have in a relationship, any relationship, is mutual respect for privacy and time. I'm glad to see so many of you are also tired of this nonsense. I wanted to answer some questions. 1. I'll be 24 in a week or two since there were many questions about my age. I grew up seeing kids go from Motorola phones to Blackberries to iPhones. I didn't get my first true cell phone until I was 15 and a smartphone until I was 18 or 19. That's not to say I'm better than my peers. I'm just explaining my perspective. I'm still a phone-addicted millennial, don't you worry. Don't feel bad if you did this too when you were younger. I did it as well, and we were all just doing what our peers told us was the right etiquette. The fact that you grew and learned means you're doing better. This wasn't meant to be anti-texting or anti-smartphones. From how I see it, this was going to start happening either way because it's usually teenagers and young adults who are insecure and scared that the people we like don't like us back, phones or no phones. Still, it's very stressful, and the best way to stop it is to break the cycle. Chances are people who do this are struggling with their issues, and it's good to communicate things instead of leaving it up to arbitrary and foolish rules on how to talk to each other. Story 15. When people post their opinion about something on social media and then say they don't want to debate, people who disagree will be unfriended, etc. I usually save them the step and delete them, but it still freaks me out that people are that unwilling to disagree, discuss, and learn. Story 16. Everybody that doesn't get along with you or agree with you is toxic. People are starting to expect being around nobody but people that agree with them, like a constant feedback bubble on social media. But in real life. Story 17. The view that you are good enough the way you are. I know that may sound strange, but no one is perfect, and we can all change ourselves in positive ways. This mindset does have its correct uses, such as coming out of an abusive relationship, but more and more I'm seeing it used to justify staying a worse person than who you could be. Story 18. If you can't handle me at my worst, then you don't deserve me at my best. Sometimes someone's worst is an absolute deal breaker, and needing to cut ties and move on doesn't mean that the person doesn't deserve the good things that come from a better relationship. Story 19. If I never admit that I am wrong or that I messed up, then I am never wrong and have never messed up. Admitting that you are wrong is not a weakness or character flaw. Being wrong is something everyone does quite regularly, except for me, of course. Story 20. A life without children is empty and worthless. I am confident that I would be a terrible parent, And no, it won't change, and no, my life will not suffer because of it. It is better to have that insight and avoid parenthood than to have kids you resent, mistreat, or are unprepared for. Story 21. Something I notice in the gym is the no pain, no gain mentality is rampant. It is good to feel soreness and tightness after and during your workout, but working yourself to pain hinders your progress immensely. CrossFit takes this to an extreme, encouraging people to work out until total failure, which can result in severe injury. Working out shouldn't be painful. One wrong tear and you're toast. Story 22. That if you don't like something like a movie or video game, it means it's bad. Come on people, grow up already. Example. I think The Revenant is a fantastic movie, but I hate it because I find it terribly boring and I would never watch it again. But the cinematography and production are drop-dead gorgeous. Story 23. The idea that resting is lazy is a misconception. Self-care is a relatively new concept to most people, and humans often struggle with it. We focus on things that aren't biologically sound, like dieting, exercising to the point of failure, or working 80 hours a week, and we ignore what actually makes sense for being healthier and more fulfilled. Story 24. That we always need to be positive. I've known some people who seemed almost afraid of negativity. There are days when it can't be helped, and there are people for whom it's always present. It's healthy to be somewhat pessimistic or cynical in some matters. Not everything can be spun in a positive way, and showering it with positive thinking feels disingenuous. Story 25. Life is not often zero-sum. Winning does not have to come at the expense of someone else losing. I think people need to start recognizing when win-win situations are available and pursue them more vigorously. Story 26. Defining people by their jobs. The 40-hour workweek. Using automation to hurt instead of help. Bootlicking to bosses who do not and will not care about you. The productivity-centric social expectations. Story 27. Nobody is interested in having a relationship with me, and that definitely means there's a problem with the genders I am interested in as a whole. Or I haven't found a good relationship yet, and that means I will never find one. Story 28. Avoid using the word black to describe the color of a black person's skin when in a non-volatile context. Customer complaining about me. Yes, that one guy made my food wrong. Manager. Who? Customer. The darker one? Story 29. When I was a kid, we didn't have all these car seats, allergy awareness, flu vaccines, school social workers, inclusion-based education, therapy, anti-bullying efforts, and so on, and we were just fine. 10 years working in mental health tells me that you are not. Story 30. Using a small percentage of one group's behavior and extrapolating that to represent everyone. Example 1. 35 people out of the 13,335 people on welfare abused the system. That's it. It's a scam. We need to get rid of it. Example 2. 3 babies had to be flown across the country for medical treatment. Every crying baby on an airplane is a life or death situation. You can't judge the parents. Just because a few people did something negative doesn't mean every single person is going to do the same thing. Story 31. That when a family member is terrible to you or toxic, you're just supposed to put up with it because they are family. Well, you only have one mother. What would happen if she died in a car accident tomorrow? Then how would you feel? That logic is nonsense. Story 32. Men shouldn't cook. My boyfriend's dad seems to believe this, so it has resulted in nobody in the house cooking because mom is refusing to since dad won't, and my boyfriend does a lot of double shifts at work, so he can't. When he's not at work, there are no groceries in the house to cook with because nobody else cooks. Story 33. The mindset that plastic waste and pollution are the consumer's responsibility, to use paper bags, recycle, and be green, is entirely futile when the majority of pollutants stem from industry and lack of regulation. The recycling plants cannot process 90% of the waste. The products you buy are made and packaged entirely with plastic. It is all a ploy to get people to think it's up to them. Driving to the grocery store in your hybrid with reusable bags doesn't make a difference. The unregulated petroleum production, industrial emissions, and manufacturing pollutants and waste continue. Each year, companies push further and further, causing more harm. It costs them money to dispose of waste, switch packaging, or clean up their messes. It costs less money to lobby and rid of the laws requiring them to be clean. Your plastic grocery bag has nothing to do with it. We need to be focused on the companies and not place the blame on personal lifestyle choices. Sure, that needs to be addressed, but only after the major players have been stopped. Story 34. You have to respect everyone's opinions. I feel there's a key distinction needed here. You should respect someone's right to have a differing opinion, but the opinion itself should be given whatever respect it deserves.